The last 2 weeks, Bitcoin has been down crazily. We have a wonderful bounce exactly right now, but the last 2 weeks were atrocious. This is the Bitcoin chart in the last 2 weeks. This is the Ethereum chart. This is the Solana chart. And let's have a look on Hyperliquid chart. Completely different, completely the only coin that has been up. Now, if we switch and see something similar here on CoinGecko, right? We're looking here at Bitcoin, Ethereum down 14%, 24% on the week. So if we look at the biggest losers, we got Monero 27%, Solana 25%, Zcash 24%, Ethereum 24%. But if we switch it back to the green, who actually was up this last week, and long and behold, we have, of course, Hyperliquid here with 16% up during one of the worst weeks in crypto, okay, in the last, basically since the bear market started, since the end of 2025. Now, I must admit, I knew that Hyperliquid is very likely gonna be one of the best plays for the next bull run, and I already made a video outlining how I'm expecting extra bearishness for Hyperliquid that did play out. But I must say that this strength that we've had in Hyperliquid, this is not something that I was expecting at all. I was not expecting to literally have 2 green weeks in the worst red weeks in Bitcoin, okay, in this bear market, okay. Arguably, maybe November was kind of a contender for these last few weeks. That said, Hyperliquid in November looked very similar to Bitcoin, all right? So this is Hyperliquid in November. It didn't look different than Bitcoin, but now it does. So this is why it's almost like an emergency video I wanted to make about Hyperliquid, one of the main coins that I'm very bullish on in the next cycle. I'm also very bullish, of course, on Bitcoin, Ethereum. Solana also has really good chances, in my opinion, again, making really amazing gains also in the next cycle. But of course, I have my list for the longer future of a few coins. Basically, I think we're gonna, crypto is maturing, and I think we're gonna end with all of this kind of meme coins. Here and there, of course, we will keep having that, but long term, we will have coins that actually have a massively profitable business, just like Binance Coin, for example, right? So Binance Coin is what everybody always keeps forgetting, but it's always at the top and it's always performing really well. And in fact, Binance Coin actually performed better than Ethereum and Solana. I mean, Solana outperformed from the lows because Solana was like in a massive like fear event with the FTX collapse. So Solana performed better like to the upside. But when you look at it as a long-term investment, Solana still reached, more or less the same all-time highs that it had in 2021. Similarly, here with Ethereum, we just breached briefly, and by very little, the all-time high. But Binance Coin looks entirely different. Binance Coin made a new all-time high over the all-time high that it had in 2021 by approximately a 2x, actually similar to what Bitcoin did, right from 69k to 126k. It also had like a relatively smaller correction like in the last bear market, and even now, of course, it's been correcting like everything else, but in the grand scheme of things, Binance Coin right now is at the same price as than it was at the all-time highs of 2021. This is not something we can tell about Solana. The all-time high was around 250. Solana is at 88. Ethereum all-time high was almost 5,000. It's now 2,000. Binance Coin is entirely different, and Binance, the company, is, to my knowledge, is actually the crypto company that has the largest revenue in the whole crypto world, right? It has far bigger revenue than Ethereum, than Solana, and well, obviously Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is different. So all of that being said, Hyperliquid is probably the closest to that, right? I mean, it's also an exchange, just like Binance. Just Binance is a centralized exchange. Hyperliquid is a decentralized, primarily leverage exchange. So this is why I wanted to make the video about Hyperliquid, and I keep making videos primarily about coins with significant revenue. This, I think, is going to be the largest opportunity in this crypto, in the next crypto, sorry, we're not in a crypto bull run right now, but in the next crypto bull run that we're gonna have, I think we're already kind of decently far ahead in the bear market. I guess we're gonna discuss it later, but bottom line, at this point, I think there's no, I was pretty sure we're in a bear market, over here, when many people were not sure. Now it looks like many people are conceding, okay, it is most likely a bear market. And look, nobody knows the future, and I don't think it's the bottom yet. However, like generally, I think the absolute bottom is not gonna be a lot lower than 60K for Bitcoin. So all of that being said, we got like the situation with the Hyperliquid, right? We got a situation here with the Hyperliquid that it is like almost like in a bull run of its own. So um I mean, it's still kind of early days. Like for now, it looks pretty good that Hyperliquid is actually, kind of had a fake out below this upward trend line. But it came back, it's like reclaimed this region now for the past like week and a little bit over a week. Of course, we'll have to see. We have like a little bit of a, like, you know what I mean? The bounce that we have is a little bit too good, like in the short term. I'm gonna release the video on Sunday, and I'm recording it on a Friday, so we'll see what's gonna happen by, Saturday and Sunday. But I just want to mention now on Friday that this bounce to me looks a little too great, a little bit too much. So obviously, yeah, nobody knows the future, but I would assume it will let's just say I'm not expecting Bitcoin to come back to the 70 and the 80Ks. If it will happen, of course I'll revisit all of my analysis, but at the moment, I expect Bitcoin to stay between 60 to 70K, maybe 60 to 73, 72K, something like that. I'm not expecting a V-shaped recovery like in the next few days. So, I mean, if Bitcoin will kind of, keep collapsing kind of further back down, it is still possible that Hyperliquid maybe will still drop from here. So what I'm trying to say is that, maybe in the, let's say, next few weeks, months, maybe Hyperliquid is still not going to be that bullish because, the what's happening with Bitcoin and even silver also bouncing today, but, like everything looks really bad. So, any coin that is fantastic, like for example, Solana in its first cycle, for example, it made like massive gains. For 50 cent, it was like 500x or so. So Solana obviously was a winner, was a very good coin in 2021. But the macro conditions were also fantastic. Like the stock market was ripping, small cap stocks were ripping, gold and silver were also going up. Just absolutely everything was going up because there was a ton of money printing. So the conditions were favorable for Solana to explode insanely. Now, the last bull market, we actually had quantitative tightening. So this is why Solana, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin did have higher highs, higher all-time highs. That is good, but generally, everybody would agree that the last bull market of 2024-5 was very lackluster. Why? Because there was no money printing. There was no QE. There should be QE in the next bull run. So this is why the next bull run could be maybe even more successful than the last, or at least the same, because we do have some diminishing returns, but then we do have QE that is supposed to help. So why am I saying all of that? All of that is important because in the short term, I'm not expecting Hyperliquid to be a superstar. And even if it will perform not that bad, it will still not really be the full potential of Hyperliquid, all right? So to unleash the full potential of Hyperliquid, it needs the macro conditions. So Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana to also be bullish in uptrends, and the stock market, and we just need the quantitative easing. We just need the crazy money printing that we've had in 2021. So unless we don't have that, Hyperliquid is not gonna explode into insane highs. But like I said, almost in many videos that I recently am making, I'm searching for these like strength signs. Okay, so Hyperliquid is the main coin that showed us the largest strength sign, all right, during basically the last week and last 2 weeks. And this is why I keep, monitoring and writing notes of which coins were the best during these difficult times when everything was collapsing. Um, and I know that these coins are very, very likely to keep succeeding further in the future. So let's finish the video by a few things. So now let's go to fundamentals and then come back to technical analysis and try to gauge what Hyperliquid could be capable of. Yeah. So the first thing I want to show is the fundamentals, right? So what I like really much, right? So recently we've had, tons of liquidations because, the market was going down like crazy, right? Like we've shown recently. Um, so there were a lot of liquidations. There was a lot of volume, which is positive to see for, bottom formation. And look, Hyperliquid has basically got like a large portion of all of that volume, of all of that perpetual volume. Now, the last time I was making the video about Hyperliquid or also Aster, actually Hyperliquid's like perp volume and open interest and all of these metrics, they were a lot closer. Hyperliquid were still number one, but not by a 2x number one, all right? So this is very important because recently, like I said, we've had massive liquidations, massive volume, and these metrics are very important to look at them when like things get crazy, right? Like either to the downside or to the upside. So the fact that during the last massive liquidations and massive volume, Hyperliquid is literally 2x the volume in the last 24 hours, a little bit over a 2x than Aster in the last 7 days. And the open interest is also, like more than a 2x, like 2.5x more than Aster, number two. And then Edge X and Lighter have been a little bit, under, not at the same level. This is fantastic. So far, it's like very strong kind of bulletproof situation that we're seeing from Hyperliquid, that they are still, during the difficult times when there's a lot more volume, Hyperliquid is succeeding more than the other ones. And this is very important fundamentally. This is actually like better fundamentally than the last time I made the video about them a few months ago. So fundamentals are even better, right, than a few months ago. And therefore, Hyperliquid fundamentally is even more likely to keep succeeding. Now, back to the technical analysis, right? So, like I said, we do have a really nice bounce and everything here, like on the day. But generally we're in a downtrend, and bear markets normally, again, if there's going to be a V-shaped recovery, which I think is very unlikely, but if it does happen, I'm gonna make a video and I'm gonna adjust. I'm gonna go heavy long, and I'm not gonna miss Bitcoin and everything going to 150k and much higher. So for now, back to Hyperliquid. At the moment, guys, like everything is quite bullish, right? If we turn on the Heikin-Ashi candles, which are showing us momentum, okay, and let's of course go to higher time frames than just 1 day. Um, 3 days sometimes shows us like decent momentums. Let's also turn on the RSI. That also probably is going to help us a little bit here. It is actually like, yeah, it is kind of pretty much extended, and there's like a little bit of a fast jump, I would say, on the RSI levels. And normally when you do have that, expect some actually kind of at least a consolidation, or maybe kind of reversion back down and this is in the next few weeks, months, short term. Now on the weekly, that is also really positive. You see like the weekly Heikin-Ashi is normally kind of showing you really the momentum. So the fact that we have a second week that is going to end soon, that is green, and likely the rest are also going to be green here, probably, showing us some extra momentum up. But of course, it could still be a little bit of a, still, like a counter trend rally. On the 2 week chart, we can see that the last uptrend basically captured the whole uptrend, right? And then even though we've had this kind of fake out week, all of that was red, and then we came back to green. So unfortunately, also Hyperliquid doesn't have enough trading history so that we can really, compare it to the past. But generally speaking, I think the 3-day chart is not too bad relative to the history that Hyperliquid does have. So I would say this jump is way too strong and way too quick for a 3-day chart. So all in all, I would expect Hyperliquid to keep kind of consolidating here, but I will expect it really, because of the rest of the market situation. Even though, again, I know that specifically today everything is green because we're bouncing crazy from yesterday's massive losses, but generally, this is Bitcoin, right? We're in massive downtrend. We're like exceptionally down from these regions of 90k and of course the 105k and higher. Um, so reasonably we could, definitely we can see that Hyperliquid is facing resistance, right? We have this wicks where kind of, Hyperliquid is being smashed back down to kind of the 33 $34 region from all of these prior lows. So this was a substantial low here in October. This kind of almost got to this region, but also another important low in August. And then, June, May, to my memory, that was even an all-time high region back in December 2024, even though it was a wick. So this region of 35, 34 is an important region for Hyperliquid. And at the moment, it looks like it's facing resistance. And when we also use the RSI, we can see that we've had like a jump that was kind of a little bit too quick. Normally you see, so like in a more sustained uptrend, like here we've had a 5x, basically even 6x for Hyperliquid. It is kind of like this jump is not as quick, you see. So it took like from April 4th until April 10th, April 13th, and here the jump was basically like in 3 days, like most of the jump, really, right? So and then it was kind of more kept trending upwards, and still, again, wasn't jumping way too crazily. So here we did jump crazily, especially when we look at it at the Haikinashi. If we look at it back, yeah, as a Haikinashi, here I think you can see it even better. Like that was a lot more sustained uptrend, and this was like a lot faster. So I would expect for the foreseeable future, meaning for the next few weeks and months, regardless that the fact that the strength was absolutely essential and crazy and very positive for the long term for Hyperliquid's price. I would expect in the short term to find resistance in this region and still resolve back down. Now, how long does it gonna go? What I mentioned in my last video. So I think $20 could be actually the bottom in Hyperliquid's case, the bottom. Now, for Bitcoin, I don't think we've reached the bottom yet. But with Hyperliquid, I actually think it's possible that $20 is the bottom. It is possible that it's going to revisit that bottom again, and I don't know, maybe also make a slightly lower low, I don't know, $19, $18 or so. But generally, with Hyperliquid, it is possible this is the bottom. But again, lots of things happen in crypto. We have to live, day by day. I think, like I also outlined in my first video about Hyperliquid, that I think it's also possible that we'll make like a macro double bottom from actually that bottom in back in April 2025. So in my kind of best case in terms of the upside that we're gonna have. So basically in the bear market, like if Hyperliquid is gonna reach these levels, it's actually gonna be better because there's gonna be a lot more upside from these bottoms. But anyway, my bottom range for Hyperliquid is basically between $10 to $20, of course, with some deviation, like to 9 to 8. And like I said, it's very similar to what Solana did in the last cycle. So I think I mentioned it in my first video as well. I think that if the FTX collapse doesn't happen at all, like if we don't have the situation with Solana never really reaches $8 or $10, and I think it doesn't really. Maybe it goes to $20 or just a little bit under as like the bottom for Solana. But because of the extra circumstances, Solana halved between 20 to $10, and created like even a much better opportunity. Of course, if Solana bottomed at $20 and it went to 300, sorry, almost, it's a little bit over a 10x, not bad. But thanks to the better conditions, Solana did a 30x, right? So similarly with Hyperliquid, for me, kind of the base case bottom is around $20. So we might have already reached that. We may revisit this price again. But again, let's see what happens in the rest of the bear market. Let's see what happens specifically with Hyperliquid. Maybe there's going to be some crazy FUD. We'll see. But generally, just like with Solana in the 2022 and 2023 cycle, I think Hyperliquid's bottom should be somewhere between $10 to $20, largely speaking. Now, that being said, I expect, of course, in the bull run, especially if our top here was like it's also crazily similar to Solana. Let me come back again to Solana. So remember, 57, 58, that was more or less the all-time high for Hyperliquid. For Solana, also interestingly, back in kind of the middle of the 2021 bull market, let's remove this for now. Solana also topped around 57, maybe even $60, something like that. It topped there and collapsed actually to 19, 20 during the middle kind of the bull market, and then it went further higher to 200 and something. Now again, it's just remarkably similar to me, and again, Solana was like the main superstar of all of these times. I think Hyperliquid is now. I think Solana will remain the superstar. But Hyperliquid is like relatively smaller market cap, of course, right? So if we refresh it, Solana is still much larger. It's 50 billion market cap, and Hyperliquid is 8 billion. So there's a lot more upside in the potential of Hyperliquid, especially being the leader in its own category, decentralized perp dexes. So I think very decent chances that the top for Hyperliquid in the next cycle is gonna be in the above $100, above in the three figures. I think it could be similar to Solana, at some point. I guess the the similarity with Solana will have to deviate at some point. But basically, I think in the best case, absolute best case scenario I can envision, Hyperliquid can drop to around $10, and then if it's gonna replicate the Solana, it's gonna do more than a 20x all the way to 250. If it's gonna bottom around 20, that's still pretty great. But like I said, it's just kind of like not such a big gift like what Solana gave us in 2022. So it's still gonna be good. It's still gonna be not bad, if we reach this like 250 to 300 or so. So it is probably like Hyperliquid likely gonna have more than a 10x, especially if it's gonna remain the leader in its category. It's, in my opinion, very likely gonna be at least a 10x in the next cycle. But just if it will drop due to some events like further down to like the lower range of my targets to $10, then just the upside is going to be 2x higher than the total upside. Meaning, if we're expecting a 10x, then we're going to make a 20x, which is fantastic and insane. Because again, if we look at the performance of the last bull runs and everything, Bitcoin was among the best performers right in the bull run. It still did less than a 10x. It made a 7x. Ethereum did, I believe, something like 5x or so. Solana was the best performer. Like, in my opinion, even though we've had Dog with Hat, we've had Bonk, we've had lots of stuff, capturing this, especially while we're still in the bear market. I actually personally I didn't have like a 10x on dog with hat, and with Popcat I think I had something like a 50x in the last bull run. But you know, you cannot expect like these coins like launched during the bull run. Like I couldn't, you know, sit in 2022 and anticipate there's gonna be a new coin named dog with hat and so on. So Hyperliquid is similar to Solana. Like it's a coin that exists. It's in the bear market, you know, from the last bear market. And I think just from the larger coins, it's gonna have one of the best, like largest upsides, more than a 10x. Depending on how low Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana go in the bear market, you know, maybe they're gonna reach a 10x, but this is like at the very, very best. This is if they go low enough and then they pump high enough. You know, basically we do have, you know, diminishing returns every single cycle. So Ethereum had diminishing returns. Solana, of course, had diminishing returns relatively to the first cycle. So these three, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana, I think at best they can have a 10x, and that's especially Solana. I would say Ethereum and Bitcoin, I think, not very likely to have a 10x in one cycle. Of course, over multiple cycles, it will have a lot more, but in one cycle. Solana can have more than a 10x, again, depending how low it will fall. But for now, Hyperliquid, in my opinion, is the best opportunity to do more than a 10x, depending how low it will go, maybe even a 20x. So guys, thank you very much for being here once again. If you like this video, you're welcome to subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna be here in the bear market. I love making videos in the bear markets because this is the most fantastic time to make videos. In the last cycle, I was making videos in 2022 and 2023 and kind of the first parts of 2024. And then in 2025, I was doing a lot less videos, kind of towards the top, you know, and there's not much like videos to make because most of the stuff is gonna go down. So anyway, it's 2026 now. Again, similar to the 2022 bear market. Fantastic times to make videos. And yeah, you're welcome to subscribe. And thank you very much for being here once again. I was AR7 Crypto. Have a fantastic week, a fantastic